Why old school marketing doesn't work. You know, when I first got into real estate, and my wife hates when I tell these stories because she says it really dates you. But when I first got into real estate, our whole marketing campaign consisted of ads in the local newspaper. Polaroid picture, 1 inch by 1 inch, black and white. And that's what we used to sell houses. Can you imagine? And how did we market to get listings? We sent out free home evaluation certificates. We had a 3% call rate on our numbers. So if we sent out 500, we got 15 listing appointments. How's that sound? And our conversion rate was typically 1 in 3. So that meant we got 5 listings for 500 mail pieces. And we knew that if we sent those out on a quarterly basis as an individual agent, it would keep me pretty busy. But the rest of the world caught on to it. And what ended up happening was every business in the world started sending out some type of postcard or offer or certificate. Today, when you go to your mailbox, between the guys who want to steam clean your carpets and the other guy who wants to clean your gutters and your eaves trough, and there's somebody else who wants to clean your heating system, and there's somebody else who it's got a maid service, and somebody's got a paint service, and then somebody wants to put blacktop on your driveway. The point is now it's just a clutter of stuff. There's so much information in our mailbox. It's not like it was in the old days. Traditional marketing day gets poor results. I mean, if you're mailing along with a pretty generic mail piece with everybody else, well, it all ends up in the circular file. Everybody's like into the garbage bin with it because it's not clever. It doesn't stand out. And we've gotten inundated with this stuff. Major decisions when it comes to buying or selling a house, which is typically one of the biggest decisions someone makes in their lifetime, requires trust. Trust is built over consistent contact of quality materials. In many cases, people haven't met you yet, but your marketing materials have created an image in their mind of what to expect. It creates trust. So I want you to think about today when you're doing your marketing, what is the message you're sending out? Because today we can't afford to send out a generic message. Hey, do you want to sell your house? Because there's probably 9 other postcards in everybody's mailbox that are saying the exact same thing. So you got to be more thoughtful. You got to be more clever. And if you're willing to do that, then marketing is a great idea because it's going to give you the returns you're looking for. Traditional marketing doesn't stand out today the way it used to. So you got to dare to be different. But here's the takeaway on this point is you have to be careful because there's a difference between being different and being cheesy. And you know, just about every market we go into, there's somebody who's doing some sort of cheesy marketing. And yes, everybody remembers them. But they remember them for the wrong reasons, not because they want to list their home with them, because that guy is a character, or that guy looks like he's a card, or you know, that guy's a comic. Those are not the messages we want to put out in the marketplace. Remember, buying a house is a big decision. I need somebody who knows their way around. Somebody who's going to ensure I don't pay too much. Somebody who's going to help me with my mortgaging, and help me with my title, and help me with my home inspection and my property appraisal. Maybe there's wells and septics involved in the property. I don't know, but I need an expert. I don't need a comic. I don't need you to be cheesy. I need you to be professional, and there's a difference there. So I want you to be thoughtful because at the end of the day, you create your own marketing program. You create your own marketing pieces. You are responsible for your own reputation. So what do your pieces say about you? Now, today the power has shifted to the consumer. You know, there was a time when ego marketing was really apparent, and we still see it. You know, you drive by a sign and there's some picture of a guy on a billboard and he's saying, I'm number 1 at selling houses in town. It's like every town's got a number 1. In fact, I'll tell you a funny story. I was driving down one of the main streets in my city, Toronto, and I came up to a main intersection and there was a huge billboard on the top of the building. And there was a guy there, a realtor, who was telling us all that he was number 1. The light turned green. I went another block. The light turned red. I stopped. There was another big billboard on top of another building. And lo and behold, there's another guy and he's number 1. It's like everybody's number 1. This marketing isn't for the consumer. This market's for the real estate agent. It's kind of their way of putting their trophies and their awards on display so people can so they can drive by on their way to the office and look at themselves and say, look at me, how great I am. But that doesn't sell more houses, ego marketing. What they're hoping there is if number 1 translates to doing a great job, but I'm not sure if the consumer understands that today. I think often the consumer thinks that you're doing it at their expense, not at their benefit. So what your marketing materials need to be is instead of you telling everybody you're number 1, you need to tell the world your customers are number 1. It's all about the customers. So I need you to make them feel like they're the priority. This is about marketing solutions to their problems. It's solving their issues. It's building trust in their mind that you're a professional over time based on the marketing materials, the quality, the frequency, the consistency, the messaging. That I'm going to sell my house, I'm going to call you because everything I've read, everything I've seen, and every indication to the very bottom of my soul tells me you must be good at what you do, because that's the impression you're giving me. Now, it's not about creative ads, it's about creative services. So the question you want to ask yourself is, what services would your demographic want? What do they expect from their real estate professional? And everyone is a little bit different. Each one has its own set of unique needs. You know, I think back when I started in real estate, and one of the areas I started in was first-time home buyers. And I'll tell you why. I felt a sense of insecurity around people that were older than me, that knew more about what I did for a living than what I did, and they didn't even do it as a profession or full time. And the only people I knew who knew less about real estate than me were people who were buying their first house, because I didn't have a house, they didn't have a house, but I'd been to school about houses, so at least I knew a little bit more. So I had this sense of confidence in that they were trusting me. But you know, it's interesting what happens when you decide to carve out a piece of the market that you're going to specialize in. One of the big problems with first-time home buyers is they don't have any money. So now I had to figure out how I was going to get somebody a house who didn't know how to finance a house or didn't have the ability. So I had to become very creative at financing. So not only did I become a real estate salesperson, but I became a mortgage broker. Why? Because if I'm going to do mortgages, I better understand how it works if I'm going to serve my clients. See, it's about the client. I went on to be a real estate broker, a mortgage broker. I went on to get a property appraisal designation. I did all of that, not so that it would be about me. It was about my clients. How could I do a better job for my clients? I then set up pools of private money. Some of you would refer to it as hard money. I call it private money, but these are people who are willing to invest their money to help people get a house. Sometimes it's a first mortgage, sometimes it's a second mortgage. But I had to learn about financing real estate. And I had to learn about how to create the proposition for the mortgage lenders when it came to the underwriting process, so that my proposals would get accepted. So I needed to learn how to package stuff so that the underwriters would approve them. And then I needed to not just, the other thing with first-time home buyers is often the monthly carrying costs are a bit of a stretch. So I started to look at houses that had apartments. Next thing you know, I was selling them a house, and with a little bachelor apartment upstairs, it was help paying for the rent. But then I had to learn about the landlord-tenant laws. Then I found properties that the zoning was right, but they didn't have an apartment. So then I needed to get a contractor, and I needed to figure out how much it was going to cost to put an apartment in, and what kind of rent would that get in a pro forma proposal, so that we could make the case with the buyers that this is how it would all work. Then I had to learn about construction, and I had to learn about building code, and I had to learn about fire code, and I had to learn about the landlord-tenant laws. Well, guess what? When you learn all that stuff, you know what happens? The world comes looking for you if you're a first-time home buyer. And birds of a feather flock together. They all talk to each other. So what ends up happening is Sally's talking to Mary, who's talking to Bob, and next thing you know, I'm doing first-time home buyer seminars. I become like the local expert. The point is, I found a piece of the marketplace that I carved out to be me. I worked really hard to be exceptional at it so that people came in search of me. And then I added materials in my marketing that would solve those unique questions that people had in that category. In the end, I carved out that piece of the marketplace, and parents were sending their kids, kids were sending their other kids, people who didn't have any money were coming to me. Next thing you know, I was selling investment properties, and I was then involved with contractors, and of course the business unfolds and changes. So the real question here is, who are you trying to do business with, and what unique problems do they have? That's the essence, the foundation for your marketing, because when you answer their problem, they're going to want to talk to you. And that's where we're going to make that a point of attracting people. Which media connects best with your niche? You know, if you're dealing with young people, millennials, you might be dealing with social media. If you're dealing with baby boomers, then you might be dealing with something more traditional, like a print campaign being sent to somebody's house. If you're dealing with traditionalists, the silent generation, the seniors, then you might be doing sort of talk radio because they like to listen to that. You got to understand who's your demographic, what problems do they have, and where do they go to find their solutions? Not get them, but find them. So are they getting them on social media? Are they relying on local stuff that's being mailed to them in terms of their mailbox? They're listening to it on the radio. So figure out who you're going after, figure out what their problems are, figure out how they receive their information. Now we're starting to build the foundation for a great marketing plan.